what a thrill it is to have you on the morning show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Patti.
Now, let's start with this new show of yours. It's called A Life in Notes. What can the audience expect?
Well, it's my life of music, my experience with music growing up in America. I grew up in the 50s and 60s on Long Island, and it was the burgeoning of rock and roll. Not that I'm singing rock and roll, but it's, you know, what life was like as a kid on Long Island with the music. We had disc jockeys, we had, you know, on the radio, AM radios, transistor radios, through my, you know, my education from elementary school through junior high and high school. And then I end up in New York City and eventually end up on the Broadway musical stage. And then you showed a clip of Anything Goes. During that period was also the AIDS epidemic in the country, but especially in New York, which was chaotic. So it's decades of my life growing up with the kind of music that I sang that was not just Broadway show tunes.
Oh, God, what a life you've led. So many iconic roles. One that will stay with you for a long time, of course, is Evita, and we showed that clip as well. You played the role of Eva Peron even here in Australia. That was in 1981. So you have this connection with Australia. What was your time like here?
I do. I love Australia. It was the best time. I can't remember the singer's name, but she fell out, and I got a telephone call from Robert Sigwood when I come down to Australia. And I had already left Evita in New York, and I went, no one's ever going to ask me to work in Australia. And I said yes. And I had the best time. I played Evita in Sydney for 3 months, and then the Australian Tourist Bureau planned out a month of a tour for my family and me, and we went as far north as Townsville to the center to Alice, and then I drove up to Darwin. It was incredible, and I fell in love with the country the minute I set foot on it.
Oh, that's
the
fantastic.
minute I landed, there's something about it that I fell in love with, and that remains to this day. I've been back to Australia. I think this is my 5th time. And each time I come, unfortunately, my schedule won't allow me this time, but each time I come, I see a different part of the country because I love it so much.
That's wonderful. Now, can I ask you a creative question, Patti? Now, you've been responsible for creating so many iconic roles. One of the most notable ones is Fantine from Les Miserables. Do you find it more challenging to create a new role or to make a classic role your own? Which one do you find more challenging and more enjoyable?
I think probably creating, if you have a receptive, creative staff. You know, if your creatives listen to your suggestions, then probably creating is more fun. But then there's a challenge, a wonderful challenge in trying to make a role that's been established already your own. So, and I have said, because I've replaced Zoe Caldwell, I've replaced Angela Lansbury. I said, we're all human, and we read differently. We're human beings that are different, and we read roles differently. I'm not trying to imitate these people. I just read it differently than they do. So that's how I make it my own.
I love before this chat started, in the commercial break before, you and Phil were trading Las Vegas stories, Phil being in Las Vegas for like 11 years. I love hearing these sort of theatre-type stories.
We could go straight down the rabbit hole for days, actually. Yeah.
I have a story about Vegas. I had one agent that was a Vegas agent who booked me in a casino. I thought, I finally made it. And it was a local casino in Sunderland. Is that the? It was
Summerlin, I think. Yeah, Summerlin. It
was crazy. I wasn't anywhere near the Strip.
No, that's true.
It was strip adjacent, as we like to say.
Some people who say they got to roll in Vegas, they're a long way from Las Vegas.
That was me. That was me.
So we know you for these big Broadway ballads, but when you're alone in the kitchen or in the car, what kind of music are you singing along to, Patti?
Well, I listen to classical music, I listen to jazz, and I listen to rock and roll. And sometimes I'll just sing along with the rock and roll. Because that's the music of my youth. Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I wanted to be a rocker, actually, but every time I sang rock and roll, I sounded like Ethel Merman. So that wasn't going to
Not many rock and rollers called Patti, really. Is that like it's more a Broadway kind of name?
There's Smith and Smythe. There's a couple.
Yeah, Patti Smith and Patti Smythe.
I should just step aside in any
That's
sort of
okay,
music.
no worries. All good. Speaking of the name Patti LuPone it's also huge on social media, from people copying your voice to drag queens pretending to be like you. Do you find that flattering, or do you have the cease and desist letters on standby?
No, I think it's funny and flattering, and you know, just I don't know, more power to them, I guess. I don't know. You know, what can you do? Social media is crazy. There's nothing. That guy was great, or that woman, that
performer. That performer is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing, Patti. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see you down under. Lovely catching up this morning. Patti LuPone is kicking off her Australian tour at the Adelaide Cabaret Festival before performing in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane. We're going to put all the ticket details on themorningshow.com.au.